Welcome back to the King's Podcast. This is Eugene, your host, aka GGGG Money. On this podcast episode, we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about net worth. We're going to talk about follow the money. What do I mean when I say follow the money? I want us to look at South Africa's economy. I want us to look at how South Africa is performing compared to other African nations. In particular, I'm going to be comparing South Africa with the highest ranking South African country or African countries when it comes to economic wise, production wise, and just how the country is doing as a whole. So first of all, I want us to discuss the fact that Africa is a blessed nation. Africa is a blessed region. In the whole world, Africa has the most talented people. Africa has the most resources, deposits of diamonds, deposits of iron and metals, deposits of gold, different kinds of food stuff, different kinds of resources when it comes to animal and livestock. All of those things above, these are things that make Africa great. South Africa, for example, greatest producer of gold, diamonds. We are known for having some of the biggest diamonds in the world. Countries like your Nigeria, oil, talking about other resources. Countries like your Egypt, countries like Morocco, Tunisia, Ghana, many countries, Ethiopia. We have a rich history. We are a region in the world which has the most rich history. We are rich in minerals. Our people are resilient. We are fighters. I want to highlight the fact that though these things are very nice to say about ourselves, to say about our brothers and sisters all across Africa, we have a problem of poverty. We have a problem of corruption. We have a problem where national leaders are corrupt, governments are taken by the military, governments and resources are fighting at each other for resources, military resources from the Rwandan government, the DRC, Democratic of Congo. There is fights happening left, right, and center for resources. Africa is not together. The Southern African District, Southern African Development Committee, different regions within Africa, East Africa, North Africa, Central Africa, and also the Middle East and countries on the Gulf. When you go to the Middle East, we are not together. We are segmented. We are divided. And majority of the reasons why we are divided is because the imperialists, the colonizers who have taken over our land many and many years ago, they have divided us. We are divided. We are not together. Even when we have resources, they are segmented. Every country is doing their own thing. Look at South Africa, for example. Look at Nigeria. Look at Egypt. Look at Zimbabwe, for example. These are all countries in Africa, but there are no relations. There are no relations between this country on a personal level, individual level, and also government level. We are competing for the same market, which is the European market. We are competing for the American market, taking our products to the Americas, to the Europeans. Relationships with different countries. We may look like we are together when we are talking about BRICS and the African Union, but there is no togetherness because every country is doing their own and every country has their own problem. The highlight that I want to make is the fact that if you look at these countries in Africa, I'm going now to mention the fact that look at South Africa, for example. We are a country that is making close to 410 billion US dollars in terms of our GDP, what our country is producing here. And when you talk about countries like Egypt, they are making close to 380 or 390 billion US dollars. These two countries are the top performing countries in Africa when it comes to gross domestic product, what a country is able to produce. Look at the history of Egypt, for example, rich in gold, rich in talent, rich in building communities, rich in many minerals, rich in exporting clothes, cotton. They are known for having the best clothing, the best material for clothing, best materials for your carpeting, your upholstery, different material when it comes to producing threads, clothing, materials for housing and materials for building things that are useful for the luxury markets. Your European, your Queen, your American, these are the countries that envy what is available in Egypt. When you come to South Africa, we are rich in diamonds, we are rich in minerals. Resources that we are mining in this country are taken outside. We are rich in copper, we are rich in different minerals that are valuable for the European market. Copper is a very valuable commodity, and these things are the things that we must be proud of. But if you look at us, our countries are living in poverty. You look at our country, for example, South Africa, you compare it with some of the countries in BRICS, we're not doing well. The unemployment rate in South Africa is among some of the highest, around 31%. And you look at, in contrast, a country like Egypt with an unemployment of 6 to 8%, at the highest, it on average is doing 10% unemployment. You look at the people in this country who are unemployed, it's a huge number, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost half and half. It's almost half and half. The youth unemployment is at the highest level. So this is what I want to talk about in this segment, in this episode, to say that let's take South Africa and compare it with Egypt. Let's start with how much are we producing as a country? How much are they producing as a country? They are producing close to, 390 billion, and we are producing around 410 billion US dollars. These two countries are not far off. But if you look at how many people are in Egypt and how many people are in South Africa, and I forgot to mention there are other countries, your Morocco, countries like your Botswana, countries like your Tunisia, Nigeria. These are some of the countries that have some good GDPs, but when you compare them with South Africa, they are on a lower level. Top 5, those are the countries in the top 5, but the top 2, when we look at South Africa and Egypt in contrast with each other, the Egypt seems to be doing much better, and with a large number of people. Their number of people, their population is almost as double as our population. Their population is almost as double. They have almost 120 million people, whereas South Africa has 64 million people. It's almost double the number, and our GDP are almost on the same level. Egypt is doing 390 billion. South Africa is doing almost 410 billion US dollars in production. And when you compare these two countries, how much money does it take to support a human being in South Africa? All of these 64 million people per person of the money that we produce locally, and this money, it comes from various industry: construction, mining, food industry, service industry, all the resources that we produce within the country, and we sell them and we put monetary value on this per person. When you take the 410 billion, you divide it by the 64 million people, you are getting around 6,100 US dollars per person per year. This means you're looking at something like 120,000 rands, 120,000 rand per year to finance the life of a human being, including prisoners, by the way, including foreigners and everything or everybody within this country. If you look at how much it takes to finance the life of a prisoner per month, it's 12,000 rands. Per year, it's almost 130,000 rands, 150,000 rands. So this is the type of, life that we are living. If you are outside in South Africa, you are as good as a person who is in prison in terms of how much your life is valuable financially. It takes almost 14,000 rands, 12,000 rands to finance a prisoner in South African prison per month. Everything included, the lodging fees, the housing of the prisoner, the food, the medical fees, the educational fees. It takes around that much money per month. And the person outside, according to the GDP numbers, your life is as valuable as the life of a prisoner. That is how bad our country is. We're not doing that well as a country. Now go and look at Egypt with however many people they have, 116 or 120 million people. They are doing just as good as South Africa. They're doing just as well. They don't have many problems as South Africa. Let's look at unemployment. As I've already said, that unemployment in South Africa is around 31%, whereas in Egypt, unemployment is sitting at 8%. The country seems to be doing well in keeping their unemployment at around 6 to 8%, close or similar to what South African inflation would be. The unemployment is very low, the percentage is very low. You expect the country to do well when they're doing it that way. But if you look at their GDP per capita or per person, it's around half of what South Africa is. And it makes sense because we have half as many people as they have. Our GDPs are similar, but they have double the number of people that we have. So these two countries, hence I chose to make a contrast between the two. These two countries seem to be similar. It's just the only difference, Egypt has more people than South Africa. But with the many people that they have, they are still able to keep the unemployment low. It doesn't mean that all the people in Egypt are employed. There are so many entrepreneurs there. There are so many people doing business that you don't need to include them in your statistics for unemployment, because these people are self-employed. Even in South Africa, when you look at the unemployment, you don't look at people who are substantially monitoring their own expenses and accounting for their own life by being self-employed. You only look at people who are in the market, people who are employable, people who are seeking employment or were employed at some point. That is your unemployment rate. In Egypt, it's similar. You don't look at people who are self-reliant, self-dependent, and who are not looking at the government for finances. You only look at people who want to be employed. And I guarantee you, in Egypt, the country has a different mentality, has a different spirit, similar to your Nigeria, similar to your Ethiopia, similar to many countries in Africa that are not doing as good as South Africa and Egypt. Those countries, they have entrepreneurial spirit. Hence, when you look at the unemployment in South Africa, the unemployment is high. But you would expect your Zimbabwe unemployment to be high. You would expect other countries to have higher unemployment. But those people are hustlers. Those people are working every day for themselves. They are not waiting for employment. They have never been employed. So you can never count them in the unemployment statistics, because these are people who are capable to take care of their own lives and their own families and create employment. Countries like Nigeria, they have a similar spirit. In every metro in Nigeria, you will see people working hard, people creating something for themselves. This is the type of situation that we have in Africa. Countries that are very much different from South Africa. Countries that are doing the best that they can, as opposed to what you see here in South Africa. Our country needs to wake up. South Africans, as human beings and citizens of this country, we need to wake up and do better, perform better, raise the bar in terms of what we want for ourselves. We cannot be looking for the government to finance us all the time. We cannot be looking for the government to give us jobs. Let's take ourselves out of the employment statistics, out of the unemployment and employment statistics. There are 17 million people who are employed in this country. It's almost 30% of the entire population. We are seeking employment more. And there is around 8 million people in this country who are unemployed, who would wish to be employed, who would want to be employed or were employed previously. So if you take 17 million, you add, that's about 25 million of this. It's almost half of the nation is seeking employment. What is wrong with us, man? What is wrong with this country? Why are we seeking employment so much instead of creating employment? The other population is young. They don't qualify to be in the labor market. The other population is older. It looks like almost 80% of South Africa who are employable and eligible, they want to be employed. We are not hustling enough. Other countries are hustling. It doesn't mean that Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique's unemployment is not as bad. It is as bad, but majority of the people there, when you take comparisons with South Africa, they don't want to be employed. They want to work for themselves, even if it means they must leave their country and go to another country. That is the contrast that I'm making. Now let's move on and talk about life expectancy. For example, South Africa versus other countries, our life expectancy, just as much as our employment rate is low, is below average. Many people are dying at the age of 56, 68. Just as you go to pension, you know your life is over. But in other countries in Africa, they have as high as 78 years, 80 years life expectancy for women, and 60 something years for men, 10 years higher than what it is in South Africa. So most of the people here, we work so hard, we want to be employed. You go and work, you retire, you die within 5 years. That is the reality. That is the statistics and the facts of what it is in this country. We are dying young. We are dying at our young ages without enjoying our lives, without looking at our children and our grandchildren. South Africa is in trouble right now. This is a country that is dealing with a lot, and African countries also, they are dealing with a lot. But I want to say South Africa as a nation, we have to improve. We have to do a bit better. Now let's look at the budget of a country. How much is the budget for South Africa, and how much is the budget for a country like your Egypt and many other countries in Africa? We've been discussing VAT, we've been discussing many other things. So I want us to now expand on that, expand on the VAT. Not on the VAT, because VAT is something that is always making people mad when we talk about it. Let's talk about the budget. South African budget is around 2 trillion rands. When you look at it in dollars, it's about 140 billion US. You look at the budget of Egypt, it's around 126 billion US dollars. And you look at other countries like your Botswana, other countries like your Egypt, your Nigeria and Morocco, they have close to 40 billion, 60 billion in budget. Other countries, the rest of the countries in Africa, they are surviving on a budget of lower than 37 billion US dollars. South Africa is triple that. It's 4 times that, quadruple the amount of money that other countries are going through. But I guarantee you there are other countries in Africa with as many people as South Africa. But you don't see those countries performing the way we are performing. We don't see their people crying the way we are crying. Those people that are leaving their country, they are coming here in South Africa. They are going in other countries in Europe. South Africa is one of those countries where we rather stay here and struggle and cry and fight for the government to support us instead of branching out and going to other countries. Many countries, many citizens of those countries are coming to South Africa because they see opportunities. But us, as South Africans, we are here right now. We are not using those opportunities, and we are not even leaving to go to other countries to seek opportunities. Our people are not born merchants. We are not merchants. We are not people who are traveling and selling stuff. That is not our DNA. Other countries have a DNA of merchanthood, people who are selling stuff, people who are going country to country, region to region, looking for resources. Why is South Africa not a country like that? Why is it not in our DNA to be like that? And we are being exploited by other nations. They come here, take the resources here, while we are here sitting, doing nothing about those things, doing nothing and not trying to use those resources to better ourselves or to fight for a chance and an opportunity to participate in this market, in this industry. Why are we not doing the same thing as other countries? That's my question for you. Why are we as South Africans not doing enough? It's your boy, Eugene G Money. I'm leaving it here on a high. You can debate this. We can talk about this and inspire ourselves. Talk about this with your own friends. Talk about this to yourself. Why are we not doing more as South Africans? Thank you.